Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the show. It's a hot, sweaty day, Tuesday night. Hopefully you're sitting in the air conditioning. Unlike myself, I will sit by the fan and I will complain for the next hour about this heat. Broden, welcome to the show. You're the first person to say hello. If you are joining the show for the first time, all the time, feel free to say hi. We've got an awesome lineup this evening. Lloyd, good evening. Welcome to the show. Hope you're having a great week, both of you. This week's guest is Mr. Gibson Tilley, and we've also got some commentary by none other than Mr. Adam Turnbull, who should really be out fishing. Why is that? For anyone that doesn't know, Adam is in the top 2 in finale week for Species Showdown, and we will talk about that at some point. I don't want to pick on him too much, and the reason is Adam's very sensitive this week. So, Adam, I will go easy on you this week.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
I know it's tough. How hot is it down in the desert?
Yesterday it was 38 degrees when I was fishing, and the fish weren't having it. They weren't moving.
Very, very hot. I mean, really, with this heat, is it worth it?
I mean, it's always worth it, but you just got to be quick with the fish. Don't keep them out of the water too long. Get them back quick, and they'll be fine, and you'll be fine.
Well, as you know, we've fished together enough, and I am the king of complaints. So heat and I do not mix. I will take 30 below. I will take 40 below. I certainly will not take anything above 15 because I'll tell you what, too hot. Way too hot.
30 is my threshold. Way too much for me, man.
30's it?
Yeah, and 38 was insane.
Well, let's bring him in. Why don't we ask him ourselves? Gibson, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How's it going, Gibson?
Good, man. How are you?
Good as always, dude.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for not fishing.
I can't help but to notice you're wearing a hoodie. Now, do you have air conditioning, or is it just that cold?
I'm down in the office in the basement, so it's not too bad.
What is your threshold for what you'll fish in heat?
Kind of depends. I mean, anything over 30, the fish get put down pretty well, right? So if it's going to be a scorcher, I'll get out for first light. And right now, because we're so close to the solstice, you can get out at like 5 and be on the water early, and the bite's awesome until like 10, and it starts to slow down. And then around noon, 1 o'clock, I'm off the water and done. So you can still get in like 6-7 hours, solid fishing and good fishing, and then you're done for the heat of the day.
Yeah. What has your season been like so far this year? Have you been able to get out much?
I've been getting out a bunch. Yeah, we welcomed our first kid there on March 1st, so it's been a bit of a bargaining tool with the wife to get out and get some time to fish. But May 8th, straight up the opener, hit it hard, fished hard all of May and a little bit in the beginning of June. Once that heat wave showed up and the fish started to get put down, I backed off a bit and started focusing a little more at home.
Now, what is the reason do you think that your wife would let you fish that much with a newborn? Is it that you're that annoying, or you've just mastered the skill of sneaking out in the middle of the night?
I have a very awesome wife. Let's just put it that way. She is listening.
Well, I'll apologize now because she is listening. She's on here, and if I stir the pot, I'm sorry, but it's just the way I roll, man. It's just the way I roll.
And many times I'll log in Tuesday nights, and that's right when we're doing like bedtime routine, and I'll log on and listen, and she'll be sitting there feeding him, and I'm sitting there watching on the other line. So it's all good.
So here's a question for you then. Where do you think you would be if you had a spouse that wasn't as appreciative of the fact that fishing is your other girlfriend?
I'd probably be working away from home still. I did a lot of time in the oil field and being away from home, and got addicted to the cash and sort of got kicked out of the oil field in 2014, transitioned to fishing, and haven't looked back since. So Sarah and I met almost 11 years ago, and we both love hunting and fishing. So she allows me to go out and play, and as long as I maintain a healthy work-life balance, everything's great.
Now, Sarah, I know you're on here, so we'll really put the gears to Gibson tonight. Who does it better? Who fishes better?
She's hopefully one hand texting right now because she's got the kid at the other hand, but she fishes a ton on the salt. She grew up on Vancouver Island, so she doesn't really like fishing freshwater too much because it's just so much different to fish the salt, right? And her big thing is hunting. She teaches veterinary anatomy at the University of Calgary, so she takes apart animals like on a daily basis. So her thing, hunting, she's like the one that does most of our butchering, and when we shoot an animal, she's the one in there running a knife and skinning and cutting, and watching her clean a deer, like, it's crazy. She can do a deer in 3 minutes flat, and not like she's going fast either. It's just, you just watch her go, and like, honest, I will back right off and just say, like, I don't even want to be near the knife right now. So she keeps me in line pretty well.
3 minutes?
Oh yeah.
Now, is that with the golf ball technique? Because I've seen that done in 60 seconds.
Sorry, that's not skinning. That's just field dressing. Yeah.
Field dressing.
Yeah.
And she can probably outpack you too, right?
Yeah. That's kind of my job. Yeah, backing out the meat.
Now, somewhere along my research, I saw a gun with what I believe was a pink scope. Was that yours?
Of course, yeah. No,
Yes.
that was her gun up until last year, and she just upgraded her scope. So the pink scope is gone, unfortunately. It went to a collector on Vancouver Island who's been trying to find that specific pink scope forever, and it was a guy that bought it, funny enough.
Well, she says we have to stop talking about her, so I'm one to start to listen to the other half. You did a phenomenal job of skirting the issue of the fact that she outfishes you without really losing any credibility. I think you managed that quite well.
Well, you got to do what you got to do, right? Happy wife, happy life.
Yep. Now, Adam, I haven't fished with Gibson. You haven't, and you said you wanted to kind of share a little bit of the experience of the first time you met Gibson.
Well, the first time I met Gibson was actually really funny because we didn't plan on meeting or anything. We'd never really spoken, but I followed him on Instagram, and I guess he had followed me. So I was fishing, and I was fly fishing for pike and walleye for literally my first time ever. And I was catching fish, and I seen them, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to offer them the fly that I'm using and tell them how I'm using it and give them a tip. Maybe they need it. And little did I know I was pulling up to Gibson, who would teach me a few things come the next few years, that's for sure. So
I remember that day. It was a super slow day of fishing that day. It was a grind, and we weren't catching a ton. You guys were catching, so yeah,
we were doing actually pretty well. I had a lot of fun that day.
Hell yeah, totally.
It's all about the education component, right? And isn't it funny how you will actually meet someone you don't know who it is until you get talking to them or sharing tips? It's kind of that camaraderie of the fishing community as a whole. Totally. Obviously, in the show, we'll talk about stuff that maybe isn't so much about that brotherhood. But, I mean, I think it's amazing just the way that you two met for the first time. It's not like it's something where you just have known each other for years. You just kind of stumbled upon each other that way, right?
Yeah, and it was in the times where you could still shake hands. So it was we shook hands, and he goes, I'm Gibson. And I was like, I'm Adam. And I was like, wait, are you Gibson Tilley? He's like, yeah. He's like, are you the horseshoe kid, Adam? I was like, yeah. It was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool moment for sure.
It is super cool how that works out. Well, the funny thing about this show is that when we have guests and co-hosts on, most people think that the show is scripted. And here's what I love about you, Gibson, is when we knew we were going to have you on the show, you actually gave me some amazing topics to talk about. And for me, I'm like, you just made my life so much easier.
Cool.
Because even though we talk about sometimes overlapping topics, everyone's opinion of things are a little bit different. And that's what I've really come to enjoy about the show. You've brought some awesome topics. Let's just get into them right now. One of them was bait management. And I'm really interested to see what you have to talk to us about today about that, because you brought up multiple species.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of different things. I know that so many people right now are struggling to find live bait. COVID has been super tough to find leeches, to find minnows. And if you find minnows, it's not the minnows that you prefer, right? So it's a great opportunity to start looking at fishing different types of baits, right? Like start looking at more hard baits, start running swim baits, start pulling blades, right? Like it's a good excuse to try something different. And once you get away from the old familiar things that you go to every time you go out, you'll start to see that you'll see patterns, right? So I've switched off of live bait almost exclusively just because for the same thing. It's been just too hard to find. And unless I'm fishing for sturgeon, which of course you basically have to use bait, walleye and pike, it's all hard baits now.
And that's pretty cool to hear because it seems to be sort of the transition everyone's making. I know not too long ago I was talking about trapping my own bait, and I've done some research into it. I have a trap. I'm just wondering what your thoughts would be as to people using baits and bait traps, because the more I got thinking about it was that for us, for the amount of people that are going out and experiencing fishing and the pressure that it's putting on, what kind of pressure are we putting on the system by taking the bait from the system?
Yeah, you make a really good point, man. Especially if you're looking at like moving different species. Of course, you can't move live minnows, right? You can't move any live fish from one body of water to the next. So, I mean, I think with leeches, you're pretty well safe. Again, I think just education. Guys can't be moving crayfish, right? You can't be moving live fish. You can't be using perch as bait, that kind of thing. So, as far as like a dent that anglers are going to put in on it, I don't know. I think they're going to realize that the effort and the output is definitely a lot more difficult than going to the store and then picking up a tub of minnows, right?
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I know that we're starting to see a little bit more availability for bait. I usually try to keep a little bit stashed in the freezer. Adam, I don't know what you're doing. I mean, obviously, like Gibson said, for sturgeon, you pretty much need them.
Right.
What are you finding as far as bait?
I mean, I don't visit the store too often anymore. I pick my own worms and stuff like that. But we're mostly talking about minnows, I think. And I go out and like I dip net suckers sometimes. But it gets really hard once the water comes up, and then once it goes down, they kind of move down and back into the river. So I only get one time a year that I can quickly do that, or 2 times a year, sorry, in the fall again. And then, as you know, I microfish, so I do catch a lot of minnows, just farting around by the creek, which does keep me stocked up on bait. And I find that the different kinds of species that I'm catching in the river, once I freeze them and bring them home and salt them, bring them back, they're even working even better for me than minnows. So, but like Gibson said, it's a hell of a lot of work to do. I'll spend 8 hours to get maybe 50, right? And 50 disappear pretty fast, as you guys know, when you're fishing walleyes or pike. So,
hey, local bait, man, you can't get any better than that. That's what the fish are eating, right? It's hard
absolutely.
to find that local bait. You know, otherwise you're finding mushy minnows. They're from last year, kind of thing, been frozen for 6 months.
There's been a lot of that. And Gibson, I don't know how much you microfish at all. Adam, I can honestly say I'm the kind of guy that doesn't like to sit in one spot for too long. To see someone that has the commitment to microfish for like an hour and then get beyond excited over catching like a 4-inch minnow is a little bit crazy to me. But I guess that if that's what you're into, then that's what you're into. Gibson and I will hunt for the big fish. You focus on the microfish.
Hey, I'm gonna put this out here. First time. I don't know if anybody said this, Adam, but I challenge anybody listening who has more species than Adam Turnbull. How many have you caught? Have we gone over this before? I've missed it if you have, but how many species in Alberta have you caught?
In Alberta, I'd have to break down Alberta a little bit more, but in the last year and a half, I have 59.
59 species, and of those, how many of those are like Alberta species that no one has even heard of or caught or even tried to target?
Quite a few. Like there is a few micro fishermen around that I've met since I've been doing it, but there's very few. Like, I mean, I don't know too many guys who have caught a long-nosed dace like on purpose. Maybe like ripping a crank and snagged it on the treble on the way through. But like the river shiner, when me and Todd were sturgeon fishing, I could see them schooling, and I really wanted one, so I threw on my little Japanese hook and I got it. But yeah, I don't know. I would love. Right now, I am in a multi-species tournament. They all got to be over 4 inches, but I'm excited about every species of fish that there is. Really, I've caught a lot of really big fish, but the little ones are super cool to me.
Well, yeah, I didn't know about the stone cats until you caught one and then, introduced that they're in the Milk River Basin, and that's the only catfish in Alberta. I had no idea, right?
I was just going to say that's probably my most memorable catch by far of Adams is that stone cat.
And like a week later, didn't it go dry?
Yeah, well, it's pretty rough, yeah.
Right.
Wait till I catch a prairie sucker in that river. You guys will definitely be hearing me probably screaming Calgary from there. I'll be so excited for that one.
Awesome.
Well, we know you've already crossed a whole bunch of snakes off the list, so I mean, we do have that going for you as well. You have a snake list and a fish list with 59 species. Does that include the Manitoba stuff? Like you're tallying it at all?
Yeah, that includes Manitoba, BC, and Alberta. I didn't fish in Saskatchewan last year, but this year, if the borders open up, there's a few things I want to do down in Montana. That would be pretty cool, including a new species of sturgeon, which is a shovel nose, which would be super sick.
Gibson, do you track how many species you have?
I did at one point, and I'm missing. I thought I only had one more species in Alberta, and I was going to complete the Alberta Slam, right? And then, of course, Turnbull comes along, and he's like, "Oh yeah, stone cats and dace." I'm like, "No, I'm so far out of it, man." So,
well, there's
game species. I'm still looking for my golden. I'm on a couple of trips in trying to catch a gold. Still don't have one.
We should go up, man. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
It's tough. I'm 2 for 3 up there.
Is that right? Yeah.
I would love to do it, but unless there's a Sikorsky willing to fly me up there, I'm out, boys. You guys have fun.
That's the
I'm
worst
good.
part is you go through this arduous trek up like the steepest, craziest Rocky Mountain. You get up there and you're so excited, and then the damn helicopter comes in and drops off guys right beside you. You're like, well, it is what it is.
That's me. And you know what's funny, actually? You guys are both talking about how many species you've caught. I don't track it. Marcy started tracking, and I never even thought about it until probably about 8 months ago. She'd catch a fish, and she's on her phone, and I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, well, I'm tracking what I've caught. And I'm like, okay, well, you're showing me how it's done, so maybe I need to start a list.
Well, I think it was just before last spring when me and you teamed up there, Todd, that I started keeping track and really identifying what I was catching and really getting into the micros. And it's a lot of fun, man.
You're going to have to try it out.
I'm excited to help Marcy add to her list.
Well, you've done that. I believe she's out fishing me all around, so she is definitely the better one when it comes to fishing. I actually am semi-retired right now because my feelings are hurt. I'm very sensitive about it. That's a whole nother show.
The doubleheader?
I think I've erased it from my mind. The only thing I have to hold over Marcy right now is I know for a fact she's watching, so this is going to get me in some trouble. She lost probably the largest pike I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
And the largest brown trout I've ever seen. I'm just going to leave it at that. So, Gibson, you're free and clear tonight. I am going to be sleeping in the new trailer. So, that's okay. We'll make it work.
That doesn't sound horrible.
No, it actually doesn't. It sounds actually pretty awesome. Let's go on to the next topic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the fourth wheel in. I'm sorry, man. I can't resist.
Now I'm the fourth wheel.
Should you be going to the second wheel? I'm not sure how this works.
I don't know.
I feel really bad.
The wheels fell off this wagon.
Quite some time ago. The reason I'm going to bring you in on this one is because I know how much you love this topic. And Gibson picked a really good one. And it's about social media, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And why do we call it that? It's because there are a lot of people in social media. Adam, I've even mentioned this before. You know, you're on pages and Mitch is on pages and Gibson's probably on pages where it's almost mandated that it's positive. But we're seeing a lot of keyboard warriors nowadays. And Gibson, I'm interested to hear what kind of your experience or your thought is on how best that we should be dealing with this topic because it's getting bad.
So I spend a lot of time on social media. That's what I do for work now. And I work for a fishing company and I'm on social like 6 to 8 hours a day. It's like anything else is the way I look at it. You know, if you go looking for trouble, you'll find it. And there's always someone with an opinion. But if you choose to use social media for good, you'll find a ton of great resources and you'll find a ton of great people, right? I've met countless people, fantastic fishermen that are super dedicated like Adam and my buddy Brendan, like guys that just fish super, super hard and don't post all that much, but they're on there and they're constantly keeping an eye on what's happening, right? But if you focus on the bad stuff and you go on there and you get offended easily, yeah, you're gonna have a bad time for sure. But as far as like using it for good, it's just like a tool, right? I mean, you can use a crescent wrench as a hammer if you want to, but you can use it for what it's designed for and use it to your benefit, right? So I think the biggest thing that guys get really bent out of shape is they go on there and they go on with a bad attitude and someone starts burning a spot or they start handling fish poorly. And yeah, like if you're on social enough, you'll see some pretty awful stuff. But again, if you're desensitized to it, it's really not all that bad. And there's so many people that are watching and listening. I think that's the one thing that a lot of folks don't take into account is you never know who's listening. So by putting out some random comment where you're just pissed off about something and you throw it on there and you forget about it, well, somebody might read that 2 years from now and be like, man, what's going on there? And you've long since forgotten about it. So once you put it out there, it's out there for good.
And you know what's funny that you mentioned that is people should be very cautious because some of these pages where it gets a little bit crazy, I know for a fact that there's conservation officers that make it their job to follow this stuff.
Totally.
And if you have a conversation with a CO next time and you bring up some of these pages or names, I can almost guarantee you they know the usual suspects and they are aware of what's going on. I mean, we hear of people all the time reporting people off of Facebook to them. You know, you have to be so careful what you say now. I'm bad for it because I see stuff all the time. And now I'm like, oh, I'm going to say this. And then it's like, I should probably not say anything at all.
Yeah, no, social media is crazy these days. Like people post catching fish or keeping fish in spots you can't keep them, right? And you should report them. Hands down. They shouldn't be doing that. The regs are there. Like They should know that before they even hit the river or the lake or any of that.
Right, and then on the other hand, like you have these guys who are like there's a lot of new people to fishing, right? We sold 40,000 new licenses last year. So there are going to be people who don't know how to handle fish, guys. And there's no course that teaches you how to do it. So the only way to do it is going out and doing it. So if you see someone holding up a walleye and it looks like it's their first time fishing and they're holding it up vertical and you don't like that and you want to say something, say it in a polite way. Tell them they got a great fish there. You don't need to just go straight into bashing someone, guys. You got to educate them a little bit. You got to be positive. Like Gibson says, if you go looking for an argument, you're going to find it. And if you go looking to educate someone, you might find that as well. So
the best example I can think of for that, not to make Adam look like all that, because it isn't really about Adam, is there was a post not too long ago where someone had posted their first sturgeon and the handling techniques weren't ideal. And the best reply you had was how to properly handle them and why the way they were handling them was affecting the mortality rate of the fish. And I know it's hard for people to want to do that because any of us that have, handled fish or want to give tips and tricks, it's very easy for it to go negative quick, right?
Yeah. And believe me, like there's anyone who knows me knows I'm no angel. I've had my fair share of Facebook arguments that I shouldn't have had. So I mean, you guys always and like Gibson said, you never know who's watching. There's 10,000 people on these pages, guys. You might be commenting to one person that you don't appreciate their opinion, but there's 9,998 other people looking at what you're saying. So make sure that you're being a positive influence because otherwise people are going to get worse.
Yeah, the best thing that Alberta can do right now is their course that they have set up that you can take for free. I don't know if you can take it for free right now, but it was offered earlier during COVID. I think they should just implement that just like a hunting regs or a hunting license. It gives people knowledge and that's what people need, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, it was nice to see that the Conservation Association, they put out a video on their YouTube there the other day about fish handling and keeping fish wet. So it's really, it looks like they're trying to make some solid steps forward, and that's really good to see.
Yeah, I know that there's been some different organizations over the past 6 months that have done some pretty awesome presentations on handling and water bodies and stuff like that. The only hard thing is that they control what you can say and what your feedback is, which kind of sucks. But I think kind of to go back to Gibson's point, I can understand why they do that, because there are going to be so many people that have their own opinions or opinions that aren't really relevant to what they're talking about, right?
Definitely.
From an education standpoint, Gibson, what do you think we could do outside of, trying to be civil with people and helping them understand? Do you think there's some sort of an education component we should be applying with the fishing sport?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's really important that we also understand that there's a ton of people now entering the sport and also re-entering the sport. Either they fished as kids and they went away from it, but now due to COVID, they're coming back. So there's a ton of people that think they're doing it right, just don't know. And the last thing they want to do is post up their photo that they're so proud of the one fish they finally caught, and they got 10 people jumping on there saying, well, you're not holding it right, this, that, and the other. And they get a bad taste in their mouth, and now they think completely opposite of what we want them to think, right?
Yeah.
Guys like us that fish all the time, like we're on there and we can take it, right? Can be like, yeah, you know what, that's not the best hold, and that fish has got blood on it and whatnot, right? The things to remember are that we need to work together, because if we don't, then we'll start losing some of these privileges that we have, right? I mean, Alberta is a unique fishery because we don't have the bodies of water that Saskatchewan or Manitoba have. Conservation is super important, but also cooperation is huge, right? So as Mitch said, if you see guys that are poaching or are actively abusing fish, that kind of thing, there are ways that you can snitch them out if you want to, and you can be rewarded for it, right? So I know it's a testy subject, and a lot of guys say, like snitches get stitches, and you see that kind of thing. But to be totally honest, like we can't be fighting each other. We have to be working together to conserve what we have, because there's every day the anti-movement grows against what we're doing. And what are we doing? We're poking holes in fish. And if you're treating fish with disrespect, that kind of stuff gets out there. And the more that you see that on social media, that those videos can be saved and they can be used against us. So it's really important that we just, we help each other out. We try to go into it with a positive mindset. And if you do see something and you do want to speak to someone, I would suggest, send them a direct message, send them a private message. And if they start jumping all over you, well, just back away, because really we already have enough crap in our day. We don't need to be going out and picking battles for no reason, right? But you see it on the riverbank. Maybe someone just doesn't know, right? They're afraid to pick up a walleye. They got poked in the hand, right? Go over and give them a hand. I mean, that's probably the best thing you can do. Or same thing, educating kids when they're coming out and they're fishing for the first time. Show them and create that positive experience for them, because that's what's going to take them into their next fishing adventure, and they're going to feel good about what they're doing, because that's our future.
And the awesome thing about what you just brought up is, again, I feel like we're making this about Adam, but I will say being in the city and the fishing experience is different. The culture and the attitude is different. But when Marcy and I went to Medicine Hat, we would show up on Saturday. There's 30 or 40 people on shore. The coolest thing about the way they fish in Medicine Hat, for an example, not saying they don't do that anywhere else, is that when someone catches a fish, there's always 2 or 3 or 4 people there to help, especially when it's with sturgeon. They're there to help, support, make sure that fish is brought in, release proper, get your quick photo or whatever you need to. We don't have that in the city. And I feel like it's a culture and it's a mentality, right? Like you were saying about, just being able to help educate these people to make sure that they're doing that. It's very hard to get that point across, because I'll tell you what.
Took that experience with you, and now you're talking about it, and you're going to take that experience and you're going to disseminate it on other trips, right? That's perfect. It's a great example.
If someone helped me in Calgary like they did in Medicine Hat, there'd probably be a fight. Like, not a word of a lie. There'd be hurt feelings, and then, people be calling people fourth wheel like I call Mitch, and it would just get nasty.
We just gotta be good to each other, because, I mean, like Gibson said, our fisheries are different. We don't have the bodies of water. We don't have the amounts of fish. We have to take care of what we got. So if you don't want to discourage that new person, and that's what I'm seeing so much of on these pages, guys, is people legitimately saying, well, I'm not posting again, and then they're taking their post down. And that is that's discouraging to me. And guys myself being a YouTuber, I just try to always promote the right way, because if you're influencing the right way, then people are going to see that, and then they're going to automatically pick up on it a lot faster than, wow, why does every time I pick that thing up by its gills, does it die?
Yeah.
And then, like, right? Like, they might not realize, like, oh, well, you're grabbing it by the gills and you're making it bleed every time. That's what's happening.
And Brody and Cliff bring up a couple of really good points. I mean, Brody's point is, when you see it, don't comment on it because it's going to suck in, which we all know it does. I've even been there. It's the keyboard warrior mentality. My bad experience was with my personal best brown trout. I'll never forget catching it, having problems with it, not being able to handle it, and having to just cope with what I had to deal with. And the minute I posted a picture, it went sideways about how I was doing this and doing that wrong. And people, if people are posting it to be proud is one thing, but if you weren't there to understand what they were doing, you really don't have a right to comment or criticize. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
Cliff is also saying that people that think they have advice don't have a clue and probably shouldn't be commenting at all. And that's very true, unless you want to spark some kind of debate or just be a stir of the pot, which I don't know any people that stir the pot, but
The trolls. You got to watch out for the trolls. They're going to pick you apart no matter what you do, right? And they're just looking for a reaction. And if you don't give them the satisfaction of giving a reaction, it's not going to happen. Like, if I take a little extra time on a bigger pike or something, I'm just going to pull it up, take a picture, then I'm going to sit with it and just sit with it in the water till it's good. Like, you have to give it that time on the release on a lot of big fish. If you sometimes you catch them on lighter line, so you have to sit with them for a while till they get that strength back.
And there's things like, so Gibson ice fish is big pike. And sorry to talk about you, buddy, but Gibson ice fish is big pike claws. Now, if you want to see how to handle a big pike when you pull it through the ice, just go look at Gibson's page, read about ice live wells. This is where I learned it from. Like,
stole my thunder, man. You stole my thunder. I was just going to bring it up. His video and I learned it from you, actually, Adam, and then I saw Gibson. So I'll let you finish.
Right? And Gibson influenced me. Okay, well, now, so when I used to catch a big 40 or something and I wanted to take a picture, well, I'd pop the hooks out and keep her in the water, pop the hooks out, and then I just hold her in the water like this, and then I'd bring her up. Well, now I got an ice live well because someone posted a picture and posted a description of how to do it for me. So now I can keep this fish horizontal, I can keep her nice and healthy, and then just click up for the shot and then down the whole shot. And she's barely ever felt the ambient air temperature, and she's been horizontal the whole time instead of being disoriented because she's been vertical the whole time.
That's right.
That's what
it's simple things like influencing through a picture or a video, and then just explaining kind of why that's the positive way to do it, because a ton of people are going to see that and then they're going to do that as well because, hey, well, that pike lifting out of that live well looks sick as it's dripping, and then I send it right back down the hole and it looks awesome. So I want to be like that too.
Nose and fins, right?
Right?
You never know who's listening,
eyeballs.
right? That's probably the best thing I can say about social is you never know who's listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And don't spot burn. That's the worst. You want to lose friends? Start burning spots.
Yeah, just when someone posts a nice fish, guys, I don't care if you know them, if you don't know them, just keep the name out of your mouth. You don't have to post unless, like, if the person wants to say, hey, I just caught this rainbow trout out of the Bow River, then sure, that's fine. But
you guys
don't
have
be
just
like,
built your own.
Is that Carsland Weir, or like, were you here, or like, you guys don't have to. You just keep the names out of your mouth and just, hey, if you want to send them a private message, oh wow, I fished there the other day. Not, oh, I fished such and such place last week and didn't catch anything. How did you get that? Well, thanks, man. That just burned something.
You built the perfect segue, both of you, because we called it boots on the ground, and I think I saw Dino saying this, and you guys just tied into it perfectly. We're seeing a lot back to social media, or get a lot of messages from people wanting to know, well, where did you catch that? How did you find that? Where do I go? And when we hear boots on the ground, we're talking about being able to find your own spots and really put in the time and effort. Gibson, I think you had some pretty good tips there to share as well on that, and maybe even some tips on what you do to find some spots on your own as well.
Well, I mean, everybody probably saw it this year. Talking to guys in Manitoba and Saskatchewan and throughout the States, everyone said the same thing. The most ice anglers they've ever seen on any of their lakes was this year due to COVID. So a lot of spots are getting hammered, and it sucks because, yeah, some of these awesome spots now have extra people on them. Or if someone sees my truck, they'll be like, oh, he's over there. So then next thing you know, I show up the next time and there's somebody in there. So it's not a bad thing, right? Like it's all part of fishing. So using that as fuel to go and find new spots is probably the most exciting and exhilarating feeling, when you can roll into a new spot that you know looks good. Either you just stumbled upon it when you were walking, or you scouted it on Google Earth or on bathymetry maps, and you went in there, you rolled in, conditions are right, and you hook a big fish. That is the best feeling, especially when no one else is in there. You can hang on to that spot, archive it, and leave it alone, and come back and get in there again. No one knows it's there, or very few people know it's there, and you can go in there and same thing, catch fish. So using that and getting away from communal spots is one of the best things that some of the best anglers that I know do religiously. And these are the things that you don't see on social media, are the amount of hours that guys put in catching no fish and walking and getting to these spots. Like, it's insane. The best anglers that I know have way more days where they skunk that you don't ever hear about. And that's just because they're putting in the time. They're either fishing conditions that aren't ideal, or they're fishing spots that they look really good on Google Earth and they get out there and they suck. Or they just, again, stumble into something and, wow, okay, right under my nose, right here in the city limit, there's an awesome little honey hole that no one knows about. The only way you're going to find that is get out and start walking.
Yep.
Yeah. Definitely.
So for me, I use Google Earth a lot. I'm looking for different little pockets, right? Probably the best tip I can give anybody when they're looking for spots is don't look for big spots. Look for little spots, because little spots get overlooked. It's just like hunting, right? You look for the biggest property that looks the best. Well, that's probably going to attract the attention of a whole bunch of other hunters. Whereas if you look for these little tiny spots, probably don't get fished, probably don't get hunted. You get in there and, yeah, lo and behold, there's a big fish sitting on there. Now you can archive that and be like, why was this spot good? What's good about this spot? And now you can look for other spots that are similar. You go in there and lo and behold, yeah, that's awesome. And the same thing works when you're looking for spots and you find a bad spot. Like, why does this spot suck? Why aren't they here? Whether it be water temperature, wind direction, water clarity, whatever. Now you can start to see the parallels. And the guys that fish a ton put these pieces together, and that's how they're able to go and start finding big fish really fast, because they put these pieces together by doing the homework. They're not just following around the crowds, fishing spot to spot to spot, all these communal spots, and catching a big fish here and there.
Yep. So what you're telling me really is I should read more, look more, and quit putting tracking devices on my friends' vehicles.
You can do that. You can, for sure. Or just, fish with a bunch of different dudes, and you might end up finding a few good spots. But as we all know, a lot of the best spots, guys just keep close. They don't share. They fish them themselves. And I have private spots I don't take people to, and I know my buddies do too.
Yeah, I think we've all been there, actually. I mean, probably not myself as much as maybe Mitch and Adam have, but for sure, I mean, that there's no worse feeling than knowing your spot's been burned.
That it's tough, right? I mean, a lot of times there's a lot of people out there, whether they have mobility issues or they just don't have the time to get out, so they can only fish communal spots. If you can only fish a communal spot because you don't have the time or the mobility to do so, fish it differently. Everyone's fishing a jig and a minnow. Don't fish a jig and a minnow. Be the one guy or the one girl that's throwing something different. That's usually the bait that's going to get picked up, or that's the odd man out that fish are going to key in on.
So big fish are going to key in on a lot of times too. Because you're throwing a jig and a minnow, they're going to see 100 jig and a minnows, and they're going to go past 100 pickerel rigs. But if you got a swim bait coming past them, well, that 30-incher goes, that looks different. I want that right now, and you're on, right? Big fish.
Well, there's a reason why you fish a spot that's a communal spot. Well, you fish it a lot, but you're doing it differently. and you're succeeding. Where a lot of other people, they go out there and they see from afar what you're doing, but they're like, what's he doing? Right? It's because you're doing something differently.
What if Brody offers to take you to all of Greg Rice's spots? Do you take a man up on that? I mean, I know some of Greg's spots, but
I wouldn't go to his sturgeon spots after what happened in the first round.
Ooh. was that too soon? I'm not sure. Greg says he's got hundreds of spots, no big deal.
He knows that. Greg knows I love him.
Yeah. Adam, you brought a book to share that maybe some people don't know what it looks like, but maybe a good place to find some spots if you're into reading.
Yeah, this is everyone's commenting all the time looking for basic trout ponds and stuff like that and rivers. Guys, when you go pick up your license, Barry Mitchell's fishing guide is $10 sitting there. And this has every lake, stream, the fish that are in it, the size of the fish that are in it. If you're a fly fisherman, sometimes on the rivers, it'll have the hatches that go on during certain times of year. There's so much information in this booklet. And a lot of times, guys, those questions that you're typing in on some of the pages, if you type that exact same question in on Google, the answers that you're going to get are going to be phenomenal. And you're not going to have to deal with anyone. If you're kind of worried about people picking on you or anything like that, you're not going to have to worry about that. And you're going to get some great answers, and it's going to be all positive. So Google is a huge tool. Like Gibson said, Google Maps, guys, just especially when you're fishing rivers, just cruise that river, find those small pockets, and then that aren't right next to the road, that are maybe 1 kilometer in or 2 kilometers in if you're able to walk that. And then you're going to have incredible luck. You're going to catch some of the best fish that you've ever caught. I know that I didn't really fish trout rivers till up about 4 years ago or so. And some of the best spots that I fished definitely aren't spots that people took me to or told me about. They're the spots that I went, okay, well, I spent an hour searching through Google Maps, and I think this is going to be the best hole on the river. Gone there and caught an amazing fish. And then you got to keep that one to yourself, guys, because you don't want someone else there, especially on river spots, right? Because there's not always a ton of room. Lakes, there's a little more room. You don't want to give up like your solid bays or whatever. But yeah, you definitely want to keep your honey holes to yourself. But
and this is how bad of an angler I am, because Clayton, again, for about the third time this week, called me out. This is a 2020 edition. Now, I will say these look cool on the shelf. And this goes to show how much I fish with other people, mostly my friends, and I just tell them, let's go to your spots. This will now get put in the trailer, so thanks for bringing that up, Adam. And the other one that I actually really like, and I know a lot of people know who this guy is Barry White. You know, he's got so many awesome books. You talk about a wealth of knowledge when it comes to stuff. He's got that book, My Bow River. I mean, there's so many great opportunities out there. I think Brody had a page on here. Brody was saying the Alberta Rivers website is also good as well.
And just remember, guys, this is just like your starting point. So once you've got this and you go, okay, well, I want to go fish Rattlesnake Reservoir, and I know it's got walleye in it. Well, I know that those guys said I can catch them on jigs and minnows, and I know that they said I could catch them on swim baits. Just start going and searching and search those spots and make sure, like I keep well, not so much anymore. I used to keep a diary consistently of, okay, I caught this fish, and why did I catch it? What was the actual temperature outside? What time of day was it? How deep was I? Was I on a weed line? Was I on a sand flat? What was going on, right? So,
does your entry start with Dear Diary?
Oh, every single time.
Okay, wasn't sure.
Dear Adam, I just talked to myself. Dear Adam, dear Horseshoe, today you got a 30-inch walleye. But no, like definitely, guys, like always. I think the diary was actually like a key factor in making sure that I forgot less, because every year I could go back. Okay, March is here. March 7th is here. I need opening day for sturgeon. Okay, water levels are the same. Where did I locate them after in the first week? Because usually it takes me a little bit to locate exactly where the fish are sitting, right? Like you can be sitting 50 yards over and you're going to get one or two, and I could be 50 yards over this way doing something slightly different, and my bell is going bang, 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 and you're wondering what the heck is going on. It's just dialing in the exact location too, because just because you have a hole doesn't mean anything. You have to
Yeah.
dial in that hole.
Another good book is the Backcountries.
Love that book. That book is in my truck. And yes, Clayton, that is 5 years old, but it's still there in the truck.
Yeah, that tells you pretty much the roads that go to where you can access that river. Then do some Google satellite, and then you'll see those holes. You'll see everything you want to get to, so you can park. Maybe it's an easy hike down to the river to cut off time instead of parking where the river is. There's a lot of good ways to use this.
Right. And guys have, there's all sorts of things now, right? Like there's Hummingbird 360, there's Garmin, there's all sorts of maps out there. Guys, you can just easily type on Google, take your favorite lake and type in bathymetric map, and you're going to get the same details. Not exact, like you'll get on like a live chart, but you're going to get close details, so you can figure out humps, or you can figure out different whatever you're looking for, right? So Google, like you have your own GPS right there that's going to show you live how deep you're fishing. Like I don't have a GPS when I'm fishing from shore, right? But I need to know, is there a drop there that I can cast into and bounce my jig back up or bounce my swim bait back up, right?
Gibson, do you keep it all on your mind, or do you have like a little notepad, or do you write Dear Diary every night as you tuck your son into bed?
I started with the books that Mitch has, the Backroad map books, and like in the back of those map books, it'll even show like the lake. It'll say like, under the fishing section, it'll say like, oh yeah, east end of the lake in the spring, leeches. And like, yeah, like sure enough, you go down to that spot and it's going to hold fish. I don't know how those guys got that intel. They've obviously got the best job in the world going to all these little backcountry lakes and documenting it. So what I did is anytime I'd look up a spot and I'd go there and I'd check it out in the Backroad map book, I just make a quick note. I was here on this date. I fished it. It sucked. Don't go back. I fished it. Bugs. Don't go back. But I started with that. I've moved now to a GPS app, and on the app I can drop waypoints. I can take photos for those waypoints. So same thing, if I catch a fish, I can drop it there. But I use that more than anything. And just because there's so many spots and changing GPS devices, like in my boat, I end up losing a lot of those waypoints. Whereas if I keep them in an online app, it's all there. It's all safe for me, and I can go back and look. And then same thing, if I do want to send somebody that spot, I can just flick them that pin and say, go fish this spot, throw a swim bait in the fall, catch a big one.
Perfect. I'll be looking for you to send those to me. I actually used to use my Garmin. I can store them in my Garmin. But what you brought up is the exact point, is you get so many multiple tools and items where you're logging that stuff, it's really hard. I just use Google Maps. I've just found it super easy that I can pinpoint my location. I can save a spot. I can put all my notes in there for what I caught, who I was with, what the temp was, all of that. And I would say I have probably 150 spots in there. And the whole sharing thing, even though, when it comes to burning spots, you want to be careful who you're sending it to, but it's super easy. I can just click on the spot, make sure I've actually caught fish there, and fire it away.
Totally.
Gibson, I have to ask you, because Gord brought this up last week. If you take someone fishing, do you not let them bring GPS or electronics?
I just don't take them to those spots, right? There's definitely a few, and I've had this conversation with a few buddies where, they'll be like, man, like, where'd you get that fish? Like, you got to tell me. And I'll be like, look, you've told me about spots that I can't tell anybody about. So if I gave up my buddy's spot to you, what does that say about me? That tells you that I can't be trusted with your spots. Yeah. So if there's a really secret spot that a buddy's shown me and he says, you can't tell anybody and you can't fish here and whatever else, fine, that's cool. I mean, there's so many other spots for us to check out and fish. Guys might get mad and saying, go look for the little spots. What that's doing is just distributing the anglers over a larger area. And that's what more people need to do, and discover these other spots that aren't getting touched. So no, I don't ask people not to bring GPS. And if I know I'm going to take someone there, I know they're probably going to come back and fish it, and that's fine.
Yeah. Do you know what actually I've really come to enjoy, and I don't think he's watching probably, is I call him the French assassin, Sebastian of Hidden Waters. This is how he shares a spot. He tells you what depth he was fishing, what kind of structure he was fishing, and that's where the fish are. And I think anyone that wants to study or understand a body of water will quickly understand where and how they're being caught and kind of work through it yourself in helping understand. So you don't have to share that spot necessarily. I know people get wound up when they're like, why wouldn't you share a spot? That's so selfish. People don't realize the work that's involved in finding these spots, right?
I do that a lot as a guide. Like, people are like, they'll just want to know where you're guiding. It's like, I'll give you your depth, what structure I'm fishing. I'm a nice guy. I'm going to give you all those options, and you can figure it out on that lake or on another lake, because that's where that fish is going to be during that time of season.
Yep.
Throughout the season, they're going to just move to different areas chasing the bait, and that's just what it is.
Yep. Cliff's threatening to steal my phone. Cliff, you can have it any time. I will trade you spots because I know where you fish is different than me. Thanks for joining the show too, from BC Fishing Podcast. You guys should check that out. He's on here as well. Well, we'll go into the last topic, and Mitch has talked about this before, and I feel like I'll probably have to change hats because that's the tip I got from Mitch, which is breaking the skunk. Now, I'm interested to hear, Gibson. I get the feeling like you don't have many skunk streaks, but maybe you do. What do you do to break your skunk?
Totally. I mean, man, if you aren't skunking, you're not doing it right. Everybody skunks. Everybody goes through streaks where you're not catching. I find that the biggest streak that a guy gets stuck on is you're fishing the wrong presentation over and over again at the wrong time in the wrong spot. So try something different. That's the best thing I can do, whether it be depth, whether it be water temperature, whether it be presentation, speed, whatever. You need to try different things. If it's not working, you need to change it up. However, there are times when I know that a certain technique will work eventually, and I have to dedicate myself to doing that. And that's like, if you're tracing trophy lake trout, you're fishing for one bite a day, sometimes like 3 bites a day, and you need to be able to put the time and the money and the effort in and fight that mental game of, I just know eventually it'll work. And the best thing is, eventually it does. You just have to put in the right time, but it can be a bit of a grind.
I think that's any trophy fish. If you have that lure that you know is going to work, you just have to grind it out that whole day. And you're just looking for that one fish.
Yeah.
Like, I told Aaron on Friday night, I'm going to go, or Thursday night, I'm going to go catch a 40-inch pike. The next day, I just ground it out. Luckily, maybe it was all luck, but I just did what I had to. I went through the lures. I hit that spot where I knew they're sitting. I went through it, and 40-inch pike. You just got to put the time in and don't be afraid to change.
And I think the one thing too, a lot of folks don't consider is, like, you're fishing a spot where there's a whole bunch of fish, right? So if you're going to throw something, let's say small, yeah, you're going to catch smaller fish. They're more aggressive. They have to be hungry, where a big fish does not necessarily want to eat a whole bunch of small little baits and put a bunch of energy into catching those baits. They want to eat one large meal once every 3 days, let's say 4 or 5 days, depending on the water temperature. So if you throw a larger bait, for instance, at the right time of year, you're not going to catch those small fish, those nuisance fish that are going to take it away from a larger fish. So especially like pike fishing, you know, sometimes you can catch them on little tiny leeches, and other times you're going to throw a 6-inch swim bait and you're not going to catch the hammer handles.
Yep.
You have to have the determination to stick with it and keep fishing it until finally it does work out. That's, so many people say, well, why am I not catching big walleyes? Well, are you fishing a jig and a minnow? Are you fishing a pickerel rig? Yeah, you might catch 1 out of 50. It'll be a big one. But the guys that are going out and consistently catching them, they know exactly what they're going to eat, where they're going to eat. And a lot of the time they're throwing something different than everybody else.
Adam, I don't know what you think about this, because to me right now, Mitch and Gibson see like the 2 coolest cats when it comes to a skunk streak. I know how I act about it. How do you handle it? Because we've been around each other when this kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, and like I've had a few rough times, for sure. And like a lot of times, like Gibson says, like it's like, wow, like I'm searching for one bite, but I'm not getting that bite that I'm looking for, and I'm kind of catching some other different fish. One thing that I constantly tell myself is like, I don't know everything at all. So a lot of times, like I bring a lot of tackle with me as if you fish with me, a lot of times it's like, I don't know if that's going to work. I don't think it's going to work, but let's do it. And a lot of times it's paid off for me. Like fishing brook trout last year, I was fishing brook trout and walleye actually, and I was like fishing spinners and I was fishing spoons and I was doing everything that I normally do, and I just wasn't catching fish like normal. And I was like, well, I'm gonna throw on a floating wrap and see what happens. I don't think I'm gonna catch fish. And it was like bang, 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 bang. And my buddy looks at me, he's like, wow. Because when I tied it on and I cast it the first time, I was like, well, this isn't gonna do anything, but let's have some fun. And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, it's not doing anything, eh? And even this weekend I was fishing tigers and I was fishing my normal silver and blue spoon. It's just what I do. And I was like, man, you got to get a bigger fish. You need a bigger fish. And I changed up, did something a little different that we're not going to talk about. And I got a bigger fish.
Yeah, you are. I find for me the worst part is when I go fishing with Marcy and I'm getting frustrated because she's caught 25 walleye and I'm at 5. And I'm like, oh, I remember this hook here. I caught so many fish and I catch nothing. And I don't know what it is, man. It's so easy for me to just get mad and get upset. Us big guys are emotional that way. So I guess I have to learn something from Gibson and Mitch and you, Adam. I need to be better. Please help me find the way.
I just feel like it's constantly important to remind yourself, like, you don't know everything as much as you sometimes want to think that you're Mr. Awesome and you just caught a giant the other day, so you deserve a giant today. You don't know everything, so you got to try different things all the time and adapt.
It doesn't always work out the way you expect it, does it?
Right.
There's one thing that everybody has as a tool they can use to catch more and bigger fish that a lot of people overlook. There's guys that catch giant fish on rusted hooks, crappy gear, and the number one tool that they're not using is time. Put in the time, right? You can't go out and bang big fish every trip. The guys that can are like Gord Pfizer. They can go out and they've got 50 years of fishing experience, right? You just have to put in the time. And like Adam, right? Like the guy grinds, he's putting in like 50 hours a week of fishing at least. That's the reason why he's pounding, right? And if you're only going for one trip a week, it's going to be tough, right?
Yeah,
it's going to be tough. You can't expect it to happen overnight.
Yeah, like if I picked my only day to fish this week as yesterday, I would look at the week and be like, wow, that was disappointing. But if I hadn't fished Sunday and had a smoking day, and the Saturday and the Friday and had smoking days, I'd be like, well, I don't know if I want to fish this week. Maybe I'll take this week off. But I know if I keep pounding, that fish is going to show up, right? So it didn't happen yesterday. Well, maybe it won't happen tonight, but maybe it'll happen tomorrow. So.
Adam taking a day off fishing. Give me a break. Mitch, you had something to throw in there.
Oh, I was saying definitely, yeah. Like you can go out, put in your time. Sometimes you get lucky. You put a big fish in the boat, and other days you don't. Like I'm limited right now. We're just wound out at work, but the seasons you can kind of tell what you're going to do, the water temperatures, where they're sitting, as long as you just keep putting it where they're sitting and just change up. If that big lure's not working, size down. If that size down lure doesn't work, go a little smaller and just keep hitting it with different tactics. Like I run at least 7 rods set up in the front of my boat when I'm just going through that area. I know there's a fish there. I know there's a big fish there. So I'm just going to keep casting until I get that big fish. Then once you get that big fish, it's like, whew, it's a relief, kind of.
Right?
It's just like held up in you. You're just sitting there. You're like, I know there's a big fish here. I know there's a big fish here. You're just working for it. You get that big fish and you're like, I'm going to go pound some whitefish now.
just gets it out of the way right off the bat. No big deal.
Pound some whitefish now. That sounds like the first thing I do. I love whitefish.
It's just Mitch giving it the business.
No, whitefish are amazing. They're like pretty much one of my highest things right now. You ultralight 4-pound line on an ultralight rod or the 3-weight, 4-weight fly rod. Man, that's fun there.
That's pretty awesome. Well, we're wrapping up the show here. Gibson, thanks so much for joining us. How can people reach out to you if they have any questions or follow you and all your food tips and tricks on social media?
I'm fairly active on Instagram and Facebook, but yeah, just shoot me a DM. I'm always happy to chat fishing with anyone.
That's amazing. Adam, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's right there, but just in case.
It's right there, guys. Horseshoe Kid, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I got to get a YouTube video up to you guys. I lost a bunch of walleye footage, and then I lost a bunch of sucker footage, but now I'm getting something to you soon.
Awesome. Mitch?
Yeah, Alberta Fishing Trips on Facebook, Northwest Mitch on Instagram. Lots of new exciting stuff coming up.
Awesome. Now, I did promise Gibson I would not pick on Adam until the end of the show. People are wondering, how is Adam doing in the fish on? I love you, but right now, Adam is down. Paisley has 5 species. Adam has 2. Now, let's be honest. Paisley probably skipped school. Adams has to work for a living. Adam, what is your game plan knowing that next Tuesday is when we announce who the champion is live on the show?
That's right. I'm going to bring the heat. Don't worry. I'm going to bring the heat. Now that the heat is gone. 38 degrees yesterday. I literally measured a white sucker and didn't even film the numbers on my bump board. So, like, that was, like, a huge fail. I forgot to say the code in one. I just got to get my mind right. And it won't be 38 degrees, and we'll be good to go. Paisley, watch out. You're an absolute slayer. It was wicked to see all those submissions. But just because you're a little girl doesn't mean I'm taking it easy on you.
Gibson, will it be hard for you not to comment if you find out Adam beat Paisley and he brags about it?
I don't know. We'll see. It's a tight race. He's got a long way to go to beat her, so.
Oh, man, Goldilocks is going to whoop me. Who are we kidding?
Well, I mean, all the pressure's on Mitch as the judge, so, I mean, what do I know?
Yeah, it's okay.
That's awesome stuff what you guys are doing, man. It's fantastic. Thanks for having me on the show. Really like it.
Gibson, it was a blast having you on the show, and maybe one of these days I'll be lucky enough to fish with you and show you how it's done.
Yeah. COVID's over, so we're good.
Send me pins. I'll meet you there.
Done. Thanks, fellas.
Awesome. Everyone have a great week. We'll see you next week where we announce the winner, the champion. It might be Adam. It might be Paisley. The first annual charity fish on. We will talk with the contestants next Tuesday live, 7 p.m. As always, have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Take care, guys.